don't mind doing a little.
Yes.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and good evening to one and all. Welcome to tonight's Licensing and Public Protection Committee, that's been held today, Tuesday, the 12th of March, 2024. As per the usual, we are being recorded and broadcast on YouTube. So can I just ask members if they could, without the use of the microphones that we usually have, can we speak loud and clear so that everyone who is listening remotely can hear us? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. Part one is licensing. Item one, apologies. I've received apologies from the following: Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Simon White, Councillor Joan Wheeldon and Councillor Scowling. Substituting for them this evening is Councillor Pante, Councillor John Tagg and Councillor Jill Waring, and I believe Councillor Wilcock, you're on this committee? No?
Yeah, I'm on this committee.
Confusion by the portfolio holder, my apologies.
It's Councillor Allport on his way.
Okay, Councillor Allport on the way. Is any other apologies? I don't believe so. No. Okay. Item two, declarations of interest in relation to the licensing matters. Anybody have a declaration of interest? No. Item three is minutes of the previous meeting. This is found on pages 5 to 10 of your agenda. Can we declare them as a correct record? Yes, all in, good. Item four is the first substantial item of business tonight, which is the review of the cumulative impact assessment. This report is found on pages 11 to 24, and I would like to ask Matt if he would like to present this report, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So this is the review of the cumulative impact assessment that we currently have. The cumulative impact assessment lasts for a period of 3 years, and we last did this in July 2021. We are under a duty, if we want to maintain one, to consult certain parties which are contained within 2.1 of the report, including certain responsible bodies like Chief Officer of Police, Fire and Rescue, etc. So this report is a request to members to allow us to go out to consultation to determine whether or not there is an evidential basis to carry on with having our cumulative impact assessment. We have had a policy around cumulative impact since July 2013, and the last time we implemented it, it changed slightly from guidance-led to legislation-led. But yes, the request really is just to go out to consultation and bring a report back to the committee after that consultation to determine whether there is scope for a CIA to be reintroduced and what that scope would be. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any members have any questions for our officer? Questions? Okay. We're all happy to approve the recommendations that are set out in this report?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's that one done. So we will now move on to item number 5, which is the Home Office consultation, age verification and remote sales. This report is found on pages 25 to 52 of your pack. Matt, would you like to present this report, please?
Yep, thank you again, Chair. The Home Office, who are responsible for the alcohol side of the Licensing Act, have opened a public consultation, which is currently still open. As members will be aware, where we have a consultation, we try and bring the responses to the committee to enable us to send an authority's response. This consultation is around the use of digital identities, age verification, technology, and what to do around remote sales. They're the 3 main parts of the consultation. The proposed response from the council is attached to Appendix A. There are a number of questions and a number of background information in relation to why the government are proposing certain things. In brief, the legislation around the Licensing Act at the minute means that if you want to prove your ID for the sale of alcohol, it has to be a physical document. because it has to either have an ultraviolet or a hologram photo, and you can't have those obviously on a digital document. So looking at whether or not that could be safely implemented into the licensing act to allow that. They're also seeking views on age verification technology or age estimation technology as to whether or not that can be implemented, and if it were, what age it should be set at. So whether it's 18, which is the legal age for the sale of alcohol, or whether it could be a higher age, such as 21 or 25, which is what you'll commonly know as challenge 21 or challenge 25 if you ever go into licensed premises. Premises staff are trained to act upon and ask for ID for people who look under 21 or 25, which gives a greater degree of excuse me, of assessing the age of someone who might be 18 or under. The third part is around remote sales and the delivery of alcohol. This type of activity is something that's been really predominant over the COVID pandemic period. Whereas when you go to a pub or an off license or where you want to sell alcohol, you have that face-to-face transaction. That person is able to assess the age of the person, whether that person's intoxicated, and they can make that decision as to whether or not they make that sale. You don't have that if an order is taken over the phone or online, but the age check is still supposed to happen at that point of sale or appropriation. There's no, in the current scheme, there's no requirement upon the person delivering it to check whether that person is old enough to receive it, whether it's a proxy sale, so someone buying on behalf of someone who's under 18, or even if that person's already intoxicated. So it's seeking views as to whether the Licensing Act should be amended to incorporate controls and safeguards around that as well. So the purpose of the report is to put the proposed response to the committee, hopefully agree that response, and then we will submit it before the end date. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, so we'll miss the debate. Do any members have any questions to ask Matt? Councillor John.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question first. Could you go through the remote sales? You did mention it in your report, and I agree with most of this report. And the ones that wanted, the identification cards throughout the country. I mean, that's not you don't know, but this is a similar thing. What remote sales? What will that entail?
So, remote sales are sales that don't take place face to face. So you don't get that person interaction, someone over a counter or over a bar selling it to you. It's where someone purchases alcohol either via the phone, over the internet, through an app, or any sort of method where there isn't any face-to-face contact in that transaction. So what's been identified certainly over the past 2 or 3 years is that is a sort of a booming market. It can be wholesalers, it can be places like Tesco and Sainsbury's when you order online with your shopping, but it can also be individual specific products of whatever type variety that you might wish for, you can get online now. So what the Act hasn't done to date is keep up with changes around how those transactions take place. And what this consultation is proposing is that there are more safeguards put in place so that there's also checks being carried out, or more checks being carried out at the end of the transaction where someone's actually receiving the alcohol, when currently whoever is delivering that, whether it be someone or employed through the company, through a Tesco's or a supermarket, or whether it be a third party delivery Just Eat type driver who's sort of subcontracted, self-employed to do that. Currently there's no safeguards, but they don't have to make the checks on the person they're giving it to. This is proposing that that's changed, and it does make it safer, and there are then checks that have to be made at that point of delivery as well as the point of sale.
Thanks, Chair. It's just I don't know if it's a consultation really, and I just see a lot of pitfalls. I can see, people delivering. I suppose when will they check? If you ring, say, Bargain Booze and say I want a box of lagers, whatever, and would that shop, would they be able to check that where that person is. Is it left to the delivery people? I wouldn't like be a delivery driver turning up with a bunch of kids there and having a party and refusing to, because they have probably no identification. So there's all those things to go through.
Sorry.
Go on, yeah.
So as it currently stands, in that scenario, someone would phone up that off-licensed convenience store. They'd order whatever they want. They may pay over the phone, or it may be paid when they arrive. The only time that they would check that sale is when it's sold, and the sold is when the sale is when it's appropriated to the contract. And what that means is when that transaction is made. So the sale isn't at the door, the sale's in that shop. So they would have to do their best at that time
To get the,
to check whether that person's 18 or not.
yeah.
Or how they do that is very difficult. What this is suggesting is that there would then be an onus on that delivery driver to make that check. So currently, people selling it and people delivering it can come to some sort of contractual arrangement to say that you must do this if you're going to deliver things on my behalf. But that's outside of the licensing act and outside of the licensing scope. What they're suggesting in that scenario is then the delivery driver would turn up at this property. If they found that it was people who they thought were underage, they could check ID. If they didn't find that they were old enough, they could refuse the sale. If they found that it was proxy selling, so someone who's over 18 but buying it for children, they could refuse the sale.
Yeah.
And that would be an offence for someone. It's already an offence for someone to do that. And also, if they were delivering to someone who's already intoxicated, they could refuse the sale. So it's moving, not moving. It's making an additional check on the people who are receiving the alcohol to make sure that they are appropriate people to be receiving it.
Yeah, do they expect in pubs to have an identification? You have a card, haven't you? Will you swipe that? Will there be apparatus within the pub? I mean, we tried this a few years ago, where the pub had to buy a piece of apparatus where the person coming in with the card flashes at the particular IT but the cost to the pub or the restaurant, whatever, was £2,000 or £3,000 to buy that equipment.
So this
will be imposing that on businesses who are going through a bad time at the moment. It will be, well, again, the point is making it is only a see how things go, but you can see that if the onus is put onto the businesses to buy this equipment, it's going to be another.
So I don't anticipate that being the point. Currently, there's currently if you walk into a pub or an off license and they ask your ID, it's got to be a physical one. So it's got to be your driving license, your passport, or something that's got a hologram on. Sorry. There's also differentiation between the sale of alcohol and checking ID and letting someone into a premises. So people are free. Businesses are free currently to choose, unless it's imposed upon them, as to how they control access to their premises, and that's not covered in the Licensing Act. So they could allow some sort of ID scanning technology. What the government, I believe, are proposing, and they do, some of them already exist in terms of citizen cards, student cards, where you can get them on. So the person who has the ID has it on their phone or device. There's then a central system maintained by whoever the organisation is that they've had to apply for and prove that they're old enough to start with, and then the company have access to that through either an app or a website at no cost because they've got the device already, so that they can check that when someone shows them that and they put in the code or they scan the barcode, whatever it is, it comes up and that it is that person. So I'm not anticipating, based on the consultation document that we've got, that it would then cause a problem for premises because they would have to then purchase equipment. I don't think that's what it aimed at.
Thanks, okay. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting report, this, because it basically stops somebody, say, 15-year-old lad from ordering off their parents' accounts. The guy's will come and drop it off, and they're like, with it. And they just go in and they're underage drinking. That this is like takes it a step further to stop that. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Councillor Brown?
I just noticed, Matthew, thank you, Chair, the list of organisations that will be involved in the consultation. And I'm wondering, in relation to Councillor Williams' point about the unions being involved, because that is quite an onus, isn't it, on staff to make that decision, and they could face quite a lot of, let's call it, pushback on that. But I don't notice in the list that there's any organisations representing workers on that. So that's, I don't know, is there anything that you know about, Matthew?
Not particularly, no. Many of the organisations that are on there are the trade associations for those different sectors within the hospitality sector and businesses. Part of what the consultation does suggest is if this was to come in, should there be training applicable for members of staff, people involved, licensing officers, and how the technology works and how it should be used. But no, this is purely the information you've got in front of you is the Home Office has sent the consultation paper to. It is open for anyone to respond, so it could be responded to by someone from a union or multiple unions. But that's just the list that they provided, as it says in the section below. It's not exhaustive or exclusive, but it's welcome by responsible by anyone.
Interesting monitoring.
Yes, I do agree with what Councillor John just said. He does make a fair point. So you're right in that respect, Councillor Brown. But we're in the world of technology now, and yeah, that although there could be a cost if they use proper equipment, more or less everybody has a mobile phone, so that could be also be used to approve the age verification on the delivery. That's just my point. Councillor Dillon.
Can I just ask, if the delivery driver actually thinks, well, I'm busy, I'm not being bothered to check ID or whatever, and something actually happens to that person, he gets drunk, forced downstairs or whatever, and he's not old enough to drink, who's responsible?
There's different points there. There's currently an offence to sell alcohol to someone who's not old enough or who's intoxicated. So that would remain, even if it was a remote sort of sale. So if someone who had been sold to and shouldn't have been, that would be responsible from the company or the business that had made that sale. What they're proposing is within the consultation, should there be a new offence for against the delivery drivers if they were to give it to someone who was already intoxicated. Then it does bring up a whole host of other questions as to training and requirements and what support they're going to get. But that's would come with if this consultation, whatever the output is called, they implement, there will then be guidance for local authorities, there'll be guidance for businesses, which will then include the staff. And it may be that they don't go down the route of there being any fault being able to be laid at the blame of the delivery drivers, but it may suggest that there is, in which case there needs to be more stringent control between the business and the people that they contract to make their deliveries for them, make sure they are making those checks, and if they're not, then that would be an issue between them and the person that contracted.
Because it does seem a big responsibility to the driver.
In some way, yes, but it's also the same responsibility that people have when they're selling it face to face. Yes, that they would be there out there, either on their own or with a colleague, and not in the safety of a premises. But it's the same thing. They're just making the check somewhere different.
See body cams and all that coming in. Security. Oh, it would be a delivery driver.
Well, like I said, it's just the early stages of this consultation. Matt or Nestor, is it law the challenge 25?
No. The law is you can't sell alcohol to anyone under 18. There's a mandatory condition on all licenses that says every premises license must have a method of or a policy behind working out how they're not going to sell alcohol to under 18s. It doesn't say that it is, but they've got to have one. Challenge 21 and Challenge 25 the challenge 21 to start with was brought in because it was difficult sometimes for people to judge if someone was 18 or not. So there were people being sold to who were several years younger. And then they then moved that to 21 and suggested if someone looks under 21, they're probably 18, but better be safe than sorry and check them than miss it. There's still people getting missed on that. So now the industry standard, which is pushed by training standards, police authorities, several sort of licensing bodies, is challenge 25. So if you look under 25, you get asked. If you look under 25, well, if you look around 25, you're probably going to be older than 18, but it's not in law. It does get put on as a condition onto some licenses. So that means that premises has to make those checks for anyone who looks under 25. But it's not a blanket thing for everyone.
But like you say, the purpose of this report is the fact that people are using like your Uber Eats, your Deliveroo, and they're just getting delivered, so they don't know exactly who is actually purchasing this alcohol. They won't like a second guess, which is why I said earlier that this is a very constructive report. Whether this is what they're going to be doing, it's all. I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with me, but it is very. It is a way forward, in my opinion.
Electronic age, yeah.
Within the consultation document, it does list a few options, specific options, and then the questions that are asked are designed, I think, to support which option a local authority or the government would then move to. So one of the options on section is if they don't do anything, it stays as it is, status quo is actually a problem. But then there's a middle ground of do we do it through the guidance and make sure that and suggest that people should do this, you've got to have regard to it, or do we put it in the legislation and say we need stronger safeguards, people who shouldn't be getting alcohol aren't getting it at that point of delivery. And I think there's been a point identified by the Home Office and the government that there is a real concern that could happen with the current business model of online sales. So that's why I think they've attempted to pick that part of the consultation.
That's a fancy.
Regard to the delivery driver, I know it's an offence for someone to sell or supply alcohol to someone they reason to believe is under. If that delivery driver has reason to believe there's underage people being supplied this alcohol, is he then liable to the offence as well?
Currently, no. But part of the consultation is that should they be liable?
Yes, I think they should.
That's my
I
point.
don't believe it's got stopped deliveries of alcohol anyway.
Well, I don't see that happening. But in terms of what the response we've put in is that there should be an onus on the delivery driver to make those checks, and there should be an offence created where if that delivery driver delivers someone who is intoxicated, then there's an offence on them as well as the person who has sold it, which is the company. So we've agreed with that all along. This is about making further safeguards. So it's not just a face-to-face sales, it also makes the same safeguards for people who get it delivered to them, and that's where Officer B was wrong.
Sorry, Chair, but before we agree with that, don't you think we should have some safeguards for the driver?
I think that
And insist on the firm to making sure he has got the safeguarding. Because otherwise, as you know, you can be on temporary contracts and whatever. They're not going to have all of you. If you call a driver and on a temporary contract, he won't have had all the training what he should have done. He probably doesn't even work for the firm. He works for a contract. So there should be something there before. You know, it's all right saying, yeah, we agree to that, to the driver being blamed. I don't agree with you until we get safeguards for the driver.
Okay, I'm not saying that they should definitely people have always hung out to dry if that happens. What I see this would happen if that were if the proposals were to go ahead is that there'd be more of an onus on the people who are selling it to make sure the people they're using have those safeguards in place for them to make sure they're not open to those sorts of errors and those mistakes. So this is just very high level. What do we think at the moment? I just see if it went through as proposed, there'd just be a lot more onus on the person who actually makes that sale to do more to make sure the people that they're using are suitable to do so.
Yeah.
And that would hopefully remove, if there are unsuitable people carrying out those roles, but then make their contractual obligations with the third party companies stronger, because they would have to then comply, otherwise that there'd be an offence created. Whereas at the minute, if they don't comply, not really much recourse to it. So I think that would be something that's born out of this if the proposal would go ahead.
Can I just add in that, you know, obviously this is consultation in terms of this particular element, but in terms of the employees' roles, responsibilities and health and safety and things like that, there's other legislative frameworks in place. So the employer still has a duty with that employee, but it will be through different legislation. So it would, you know, it wouldn't have to necessarily be so specific in terms of this. It could be, but equally they have a general duty under health and safety at work anyway. So there would be other regimes whereby that would pick up that they had appropriate training, they had, you know, appropriate systems in place for doing those things. So I think there's other bits that which would dovetail into this to ensure some of those bits were happening. Thank you.
But again, a valid point made by Councillor Joe Williams, safeguarding drivers, it's because anything could happen. You know, he's not going to hand over alcoholic drinks to underage lad and then gets beaten up and taken off him anyway. So it does happen. It has happened. But thank you, Nessa, for the explanation. This is going to go forward, and there'll be more to add to this.
Yeah, there is, and I think we have to be mindful that this is a national consultation.
Yeah.
So what we've got here, there's obviously going to be a whole host of views and opinions in terms of it. So we can't necessarily guarantee what we're putting forward. But you know, today what we need to do is that our views are put forward as an authority. Thank you.
Any more comments, questions for Matt or Nesta? No? Okay, then we as a committee, are we happy to consider and agree the proposed response to this consultation?
Yeah, move that, Chair.
Yeah.
Carried indeed. Okay, that's licensing finished. We'll now move on to public protection. So item 6 is declarations of interest in relation to public protection matters. Any declarations of interest? No, it's going to raise your hands. So item 7 then is public protection subcommittee programme. I do apologise, while I try and find.
I think, Chair,
Updates on appeals, I think.
That's right, that's obviously it's on this for me, that's right for me. We'll move on then to item 7 doesn't seem to exist anywhere. So is an update on results of taxi licenses appeal. This report is found on pages 53 to 56. Matt, would you like to present your report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members of the committee will know that we come back regularly to try and update on what appeals we've had. I've not provided one over the past couple of meetings because not much has changed. That is, again, the sort of what I'm going to put forward to you today, but at least I'm reporting it to you. Since the July meeting of last year, we've had 7 magistrate court appeals. 4 of those were adjourned. 2 of them happened on the day, so all parties were there ready to go, and they were adjourned by the court due to lack of time. 2 others have been adjourned before the hearing date, so we've never actually got to court. We have future dates now, but the will of the court and how much work they have on. The good news is that 3 of the 7 were withdrawn, which means we don't have to go to court and defend them. 2 of those are following subcommittee decisions to revoke driver licenses for various reasons. Once they withdrew their appeal, that immediately meant they had to stop driving. So we obtained their driver's badges and they stopped working as taxi drivers for Newcastle Borough Council. The 3rd one, we suspended a licence because someone's DBS update service had expired. Everyone knows that you need DBS certificate to be a taxi driver. Part of our policy and national guidance is that it gets checked every 6 months and it's kept on what's called the update service. They hadn't paid to keep their update subscription up to date. They haven't provided us with a new certificate either, so we suspended them whilst they did that. Once they provided us with a new certificate, we lifted the suspension, so there's therefore no need for an appeal any further. As it stands, or at the time of the report, we have 11 outstanding appeals defending the magistrate's court, but not in the Crown Court. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Matt. I'll just make members aware that I heard yesterday on a news bulletin that they were talking about courts, obviously not with on taxi license, but other cases and whatnot. And they seem to think, yeah, obviously COVID had a big impact. Everything is slow recovering, but it is getting better. I don't know how true that is.
I'd suggest that in the times and the appeal dates that we're getting for specifically taxi appeals, nothing's improved. In fact, it may be getting worse. We still have one case that's ongoing from a decision that was taken in July 2020, which has been adjourned 7 or 8 times. Some for court time, some because of issues with the appellant. But some of our appeals are being listed now for 2025.
Which is a shame, really, because when they've had their licence revoked and they go and appeal, they can still continue to drive. It's I wonder if something could be put forward to whether it's the government or another party that organise this and make the rules. If we could do something so that they can get, so they don't drive while they're waiting for their appeal.
I think that would be difficult because it'd be quite contrary to public law.
Yeah.
There are provisions where the decisions taken that are immediate, so our immediate revocations or immediate suspensions, that means that they can't drive pending appeal. They are reserved for more serious matters, the allegations of serious violence or sexual assault or things like that. So we're successful in taking those licences away and rarely get appeals on those. I think it would be a challenge. And another difficulty in terms of the courts is that there are different sort of circuits of courts. So some hours, our magistrates certainly seem to take quite a long time to list things because of the workload. I know of other magistrates courts around the country that can deal with these cases within several months. And I believe that's just a capacity issue.
So I'll say to members on your subcommittees, that is the only way we can stop them driving behind the road and this effect. But that will be dependent on the case, of course. Do any members have any questions for Esther?
I'm quite interested in the 3 appeals that were withdrawn because obviously that is good news in relation to the 11 outstanding. What sort of factors caused them to withdraw, would you say?
It's difficult to give sort of definitive reasons. The suspension one was they appealed so they could continue driving whilst they got their DPS certificate. So that was just to allow them to keep working whilst they got the documents they needed. So that was quite clear cut. The other 2, sometimes it's legal advice that suggests that they're going to be unsuccessful or likely to be unsuccessful. Sometimes it's the concern that they will have over cost, because if we are successful in defending the appeal, then we are generally very successful in getting our costs back. So that's somewhere between £1,200 and £2,000, depending on sort of the nature of the case and the work that's gone into it. It's hard to say. There's also certain possibilities that they've been able to get the licence elsewhere. But now there is a national register which is mandatory for everyone to use. So if a revocation or a suspension or a refusal takes place, every local authority now has to record it on that register. Every time anyone makes an application to be a taxi driver, they have to check that register first. And they then have to ask that authority why they're revoked or suspended or refused. They still can then take their own decision, which might be different to what we've done. But there's that safeguard now, and that was only implemented in 2022 to be mandatory. That it's now much harder that if someone has action taken against their license, it is now harder to get another license, but not impossible.
Any other questions? No? Okay, I'll we happy to know contents of this report?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, agreed.
Agreed.
Item 9 then is consultation on revocation of the Maybank or Stanton and Port Hill AQMA. Darren, sat nice and quiet over there in the corner.
I've been waiting for this.
So your report, please.
For those of you who don't know, HQMA is now called too much town, so I'll just talk you through this quickly. Every year we bring you an annual status report, which is a retrospective review of air quality across the borough, primarily based on the diffusion tube monitoring that we undertake in locations. A number of years ago, we declared the High Street in Maybank, or Stanton and Port Hill Bank air quality monitored areas. We were above the statutory objectives for nitrogen dioxide. Nitrogen dioxide primarily being caused by combustion and road traffic in this particular case. So I'm pleased to report that since 2018, we've been well below the statutory objective. And based on last year's report to DEFRA, they advised that we should now be revoking the air quality monitored area as we maintain compliance and continue to show a downward trend in nitrogen dioxide levels. So to enable us to do that, what I'm proposing is that we go out to consultation, seek the views of relevant stakeholders, members of the public, community interest groups, yourselves and any other interested parties, and then to bring a report back to you in due course with the findings of that consultation, and then hopefully then the recommendation to withdraw the air quality monitored area. Or just because we withdraw an air quality monitored area doesn't mean that we consider air quality to be done and dusted in that particular location. We will intend to monitor moving forward, particularly in regard to potential changes in standards. So it's all being mooted at the moment, but also to give us reassurance that things aren't going in the wrong direction. So that's the proposal.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Thank you. Yeah, as Appendix B clearly shows, it has improved over the last 2 years, but we're still waiting for last year's to come through, which will be at a later date this year. Any questions from Darren? So John,
I mean, is 6 weeks long enough? Why? That's that question. The impact of Grange Lane, the bottom of Grange Lane, we would see in the local press, and anybody that's gone into that junction, the 500, and the traffic coming from festival site, it's horrendous. People have said that it's stuck on the retail site for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, can't get off. There's a build-up of traffic. So people then will make other arrangements to get how to get into the site, how to use Port Hill Bank, which, you know, like you said, Chair, it's got better, but I mean, that's so stays as it is. But I got, you know, the concerns of local residents. But the Grange Lane, the use of the Grange Lane is not being used as much as it should be because of the, as I've said, the traffic jams at the bottom on the 500. And, you know, anybody wants to go down there, I've used that to junction coming from Festival Borough, but I don't usually have come back from the bank because of the exactly that trouble. That was a question anyway, Chair, you know.
Okay, well, in response to your first part of the question, is 6 weeks long enough? That does follow the council's consultation guidance, and traditionally any consultation exercise we've done other than statutory consultations that specify a period of time. 6 weeks is usually what we've done as a council.
Just interrupt you, statutory, you're not getting into the public.
Yeah, we will be going out to the public, yeah,
And
we're inviting comments, yeah,
that's
and any other stakeholders that and then your comments about the retail park. Where these diffusion tubes are located, they are located principally where people live. So the start of the terrace property along the high streets, for example.
Yeah.
And Portal Bank. So those are the locations that we're assessing and we've shown significant compliance. We're in the order of about 25% or more compliance. So we've got quite a margin to that we can work with should things traffic start to grow in this area. But hopefully with the introduction of clean vehicle technology, the shift towards electric vehicles and improvements in the fleet emissions technology, we should see still maintain that downward trajectory. As regards the Wolstanton Retail Park, that isn't a relevant location. It's what I gather is more of an issue around the roundabouts and people actually getting off. Yeah, so that's something we can feed back to county council when we have discussion about traffic and.
Will you be doing that? You, Chair, will you be doing that?
We can do that, yeah.
Thank you. I mean, the point is, I'm making real use of the traffic, instead of using Grange Lane to get onto Penn, they use the old traditional routes because of the traffic jams down at what I just said. So, you know, it needs to be sorted, whether they can put another road in or access or whatever on the retail park. I don't know, but something's needed to be done down there. It's appalling.
Yes, I totally agree. It was mentioned in the previous. Darren, is Great Road View and the houses at the top of Grange Lane, do they got any monitoring of this sort?
No, it's mainly the high streets where we've got houses back of the pavement. So the area of Great Road View and that new development there, that isn't affected by poor air quality. Yes, it says located in proximity to the A500, which has been an area of concern in the past, but given the distance between A500 and that estate and the topography, air quality isn't an issue there.
Yeah, it's just to pick up what you do. Yeah, John's point is because like in the previous, I've said exactly the same. But yeah, it is clear that Portal Bank is a lot better. Wolstanton High Street doesn't get used as much. And then going into the main bank area, because there's that many parked cars, people tend not to go that way and like go elsewhere.
Maybank's been used a lot.
Say again?
Maybank's used a lot. Work times and school times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason why is they shut Master Bank. Well, 2 years ago, was doing something. And did that diversion through Maybank and down Grange Lane. And since that, people didn't know it was there. Since then, they all come that way now. They don't go down Master Bank.
Yeah, because it's easier access to get to the fish.
But we don't do stuff in Maybank. No, it's excuse and school times, work times. About them. We don't want that, do we?
No, Councillor Tag. But
That's of course they diverted them 2 years ago,
Yeah.
especially. And they've gone that way ever since. They didn't even know it was there until they diverted them.
Sat down for that.
Eh?
They usually sat down, don't they?
But saying they didn't know they could come that way.
Yeah.
They just go down off the bank. No, that's empty now, and they all come through the main bank and
anything further, Darren?
and they'll take down and them back to go down back to the bank.
We've done monitoring for a number of years along that route, and we are continuing to show a continued improvement in air quality and a reduction in nitrogen dioxide levels. So that has taken account that period of time and change in people's habits since COVID as well. And we start to recover from that. So so I'm quite pleased really to say that that's the case. It won't mean that we don't continue to monitor, as we said. We will continue to monitor and also work with county highways and Highways England to improve things where we can.
But see, can you ever go back to go down?
Yes, sir.
Nesta,
I
right, so-
think in terms of those were temporary arrangements, weren't they, that were in place in terms of those. So Basswood Bank is fully open. There's obviously a number of routes, you know, or there's 3 or 4 routes within that area to cross from the borough to the city, aren't there? So all of those can be used. Obviously, certain people, you know, people have their preferred routes in relation to it. But I think, like Darren says, you know, the legal limit is 40. I think the graph that we've shown in terms of the appendix on page 61 just shows how far below we are and the downward trend in terms of that in the area that we're talking about. So, you know, I think obviously if we go out to public consultation, all these comments will come back and we can have an opinion as to whether or not we should maintain the air quality management area. Now, obviously, the air pollution and vehicles are intrinsically linked, but you know, it's not the traffic, it's the air pollution we are actually measuring and monitoring here at particular locations. So, you know, the request is because we are below that legal limit, we won't change our monitoring, we won't change any of those arrangements, but the actual declaration of that air quality management area is something that, you know, we most probably need to go out and consult on to get the wider views as to whether or not that should maintain, or if the, you know, the results are such that the improvement in air quality has been made since we declared it.
If you're coming back to this committee,
yeah, sorry, that's a later date
good.
for further discussions in the consultation report. So,
Yeah, and by that time we'll have had 2024 results, you know, just to update the data. 2023 results, sorry, yeah, the 2024 results. Yeah.
get ahead of ourselves. Any other questions for Darren or comments? No? Okay, are we happy to approve the recommendations for this report?
Yes.
Send that to us. Yeah, that's carried. Item 10 is the minutes of the Public Protection Subcommittee meetings. These minutes are found on pages 65 to 66 of your agenda. Are members happy to approve these minutes?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Item 11 is disclosure of exempt information, and 12 is urgent business. I believe there's neither or. So that concludes business for this evening. Have a good journey home and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Chair.